don't have one method of marketing, and I didn't have one method. I had 15 methods of marketing that I would bring, different ways I would bring people and introduce them to my agency, right?
Got questions, we bring the facts. From proven pros who walk the tracks. Business life, no smoke, just flames. Ask the experts, David Williams brings the game.
Good morning, everybody. This is another exciting episode of Ask the Experts. Today is Thursday, March 5th, and I'm your host, Andy Arter. And today we have a builder, an operator, and a strategist, a true strategist joining us. And our guest is Mr. Brett Vance. But before we bring him in, I want to give a quick background. So Brett's career didn't start in insurance. It started in finance and operations at the executive level. He served as controller, CFO, and COO across multiple companies where he led multi-state acquisitions, grew revenues of 300+%, reduced expenses by as much as 32%, and helped scale a company to $70 million in revenue. And then in 2003, Brett built his own insurance agency from scratch, from zero to 7,200 policies, 15 million in premium, 16 Toppers Club, 10 championships, 7 President's Council, 4 MDRT, and the 2020 Farmers Life Agency of the Year. So he's served on the Farmers Insurance Advisory Board, the Federal Credit Union Advisory Board, and he's coached over 10,000 agents nationwide through SBV coaching. He's also built a real estate portfolio of 27 doors across 3 states, a financial services firm managing $20 million, and now serves as CEO of Real-Time Insurance Group, focused on B2B sales, life, commercial brokerage, and hard-to-place markets, which we'll talk through today. So today we're going to talk about Medicare conversations and opportunity, building commercial brokerage holes agents, where in the holes where agents are missing, life insurance as a referral engine, scaling agencies with financial discipline, and so much more. So please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Brett Vance. And Brett, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing good. Always good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, very, very glad to have you. And I'm luckily involved in some of the groups and things you have going on Facebook. Maybe we can give out some of those names towards the end of this so people can access those as well. But just love,
Sure.
Your impact and influence. And you didn't just ride off into the sunset. You took a very successful career in the insurance space and other backgrounds, and you're helping spread that out to others. So it's a real pleasure to have you here. And, we bring in experts specifically that don't just talk the talk, but they've walked the walk for many years, sometimes decades. And you were definitely in that caliber group of experts. And one of the places I wanted to start today actually is just a little bit of kind of your origin story, being that you have an operator mindset, which is unique. You started as a CFO and COO. Very curious, how did that shape how you eventually built your agency differently? Like just having an operator's background.
Yeah, for sure. The thing we always say in the insurance industry, amongst all my peers and friends, we always say, we wish we would have started this 10 years earlier, right? Because especially the successful ones, because we are in a residual business in most cases. Maybe not as much on the life insurance side, but in most cases, and we always wish we would have started earlier. Part of me wishes that I hadn't started any earlier, because those experiences did give me, the foundation of what I needed from an accounting standpoint, from a finance standpoint, from an operations standpoint. Uh, you know, Working with other people in a professional setting, understanding that teams build companies, people don't build companies. That was my biggest lesson, I think. And in the corporate world, was big things happen in teams, and I think a lot of companies have moved in that direction. But bringing that over to the scratch agency model helped me take a lot more risks than I wouldn't have taken had I not had that experience.
That's an interesting perspective. And now you're on the other side of it, where you've worked with over 10,000 agents and producers and professionals. Like where do you see the biggest knowledge gaps? Where do agents not understand about running an agency like a business now that you're on the other side of that?
Yeah, I might substitute a different word. for me, and I can only speak for my experience personally, and then my experiences in coaching agents. Uh, the thing that I see when I enter agencies when they hire SBV coaching to come in and assist is maybe not the knowledge. Most of these agents know what they need to know to get policies sold and
Hmm.
whatnot. But I think what they're lacking is the trust in people. I see a lot of people come in and they're trying to do everything themselves, and they're trying to conquer the world alone. And I think if
Hmm.
they would just place some trust in people, and look, I'm one of the biggest examples historically of someone who would not do that sooner than later. But again, I learned that luckily outside of the at a insurance industry at a very young age, and that just helped me propel into scaling my own agency. So
Hmm. Thank you for saying that. No, that's definitely a good perspective compared to just saying they don't have the knowledge. You're like, look, people know what to do. They're just trying to conquer the world themselves. And we're going to get a little bit more into that and what it means to actually operate a team. But I really appreciate, that perspective. I suffer from that as well, and I see that problem all the time. Now, when you came in and you started scratch, what would you say that you did a little bit differently from day one than maybe the typical agency might go through? What did you, I guess, operationally, strategically, or intentfully think through, and maybe, one or two things that you can think back on and say, that was rather unique. That was something I did that was maybe a little bit out of the normal playbook that helped set me up for success from day one.
sure, it's actually super simple. I came into a model, and this has been the model for 25 years, ever since I've been into it. I came into a model of buy lead, sell insurance, right? That was the whole model, and that seems to be the continual model, right? And I applied some of the things. Believe it or not, we go to college or we go to school, and not everybody needs to go to college to be successful. Please don't anyone mince my words about that. That's not my message. But I thought when I was in college that I would not use any of that to further my career at all. I thought I was just going through the motions, getting a grade, and leaving.
Mhm.
And I'd originally gone to college for different reasons, not to go to school. I wanted to play some sports and do some other things, right? But I got out of college and I'd learned a few things in there. And one of the things I learned in marketing was never to have just one source. And so to answer your question in short,
Mm.
I know there was a long road to get to your answer, but I need to give everyone, why the answer is the way it is. Uh, in short, don't have one method of marketing. And I didn't have one method. I had 15 methods of marketing that I would bring different ways I would bring people and introduce them to my agency, right?
Hmm.
And so instead of just buying leads, selling insurance, I was doing so many different things. And this call is way too short for us to go over all 15 of them. But the real key to the end of the answer is I had
Mhm.
5 in reserve at all times, so that if insanity kicked in and I was doing the same things over and over and I wasn't getting the results I wanted, I would just scratch one of the marketing methods and insert one that I had ready to go. I had budget for it. I had, and that's part of
Hmm.
the risks that I talk about. Andy, is, you've got to be willing to risk a dollar to make $100, and those are the things I think I would do differently. And again, it goes back to your original question that I think I was prepared to do that because I came from different industries where I was allowed to do that, and I did that for other people. I just got tired of making other people rich, and so I said, you know what, I'm gonna go do this myself, and took some risks, and luckily it paid off. Luckily it paid off.
100%. You know, it's kind of funny, at least for me, I'm a numbers guy, and you say 15 different approaches and you hit 15 million. So I'm like 15, 15, like I wonder what that number would have looked like if you only had one marketing source and you were on the roller coaster all the time. So I love the idea of diversity. And a gentleman I used to work for who eventually became a billionaire, he had an approach he would call the octopus approach. And he's like, I'm going to reach into the market with 8 arms and surround it versus
Right.
go in as a minnow, as like one fish that can get picked off. So I love that mindset. And I want to get into some of the meat of this, right? And I think tactically, strategically, kind of tapping into your expertise. One of the first areas would be like life insurance and referral sourcing. And we'll go through some of these different categories that we have planned, but really want to look at what you coined the phrase as like a timeless approach to life insurance and referral sourcing. And I'd really like to understand, like, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah. So every industry is always trying to innovate and always trying to create new products to try to capture market share or whatever it is that they're trying to do, right? The,
Mm-hmm.
I think the key to life insurance is to rewind all the way to the fundamentals. And part of our coaching strategy, which also was derived from our agency, right? So my wife and I opened this SPV coaching, and we took the best parts of our agency and said these are the best practices that we want to show. We took the fundamentals of life insurance that we used on a day-to-day basis, and that's what we showed our customers. Do you know the difference between a whole life and a policy in America? And so if you can parlay that into a presentation to your clients, the byproduct is they're going to buy something from you. There's so many gimmicky products out there in life insurance. I call them gimmicky products. I might have even sold them in the past, but they're somewhat gimmicky, right? And they're just like, oh, return of premium term policies. That's just a different way to write a whole policy, right? And we're just trying to innovate these products when if you go back to the fundamentals of life insurance, once people understand what it is and what it does, most people will buy it for their family. We always say life insurance requires a selfless act. Well, the fundamental is you have to tell the client that
Hmm.
this is not about you, this is about your family. And once you get down to those core fundamentals, 99% of the population are good people. They just don't know the difference between term and whole, and they don't understand how to benefit their family. Once they do, the byproduct is you make a sale. And so I guess one of the fundamentals too could be we're going into a life conversation with the wrong expectation. The expectation is sell Andy Arter a life policy. I don't go in with that expectation. I say, let me educate Andy Arter about life insurance fundamentally, and then he'll always look to me for his life insurance answers, whether it's today, a year from now, 5 years from now. Most insurance agents, myself included, when we first start, we are so short term when we think about 5 minutes, $500. We need to get as many. So if you're really in this for the long haul and you really want to build wealth and even generational wealth for yourself and your family as an insurance agent, I would say you could wait 5 years for a life sale sometimes. And that's why most people, and you're probably going to ask me this question, I'll go ahead and answer it now. Why do most people not get into life insurance? Why do
Yeah,
most
that
people
actually was one of my
ignore?
questions.
Yeah. It's what I get it all the time. And it's basically because it takes too much time and we are selfish as human beings with our time. And I would ask everyone on the call, just put yourself out there, be less selfish with your time, give that time, and it's amazing what people will give in return once you give that time. It's the old I forget
Yeah.
what it is. I don't have it here. Giver's Gain, the Go Giver. Any of those reads that you have, read them and read them again, because AI is coming and it's coming fast. But I still think relationships are going to build businesses. We're going to use AI to help us build those relationships. We need to give, and the byproduct is a sale. That's my position.
I appreciate that position a lot. And from somebody that held out on life insurance for years, and then finally I got into this industry, I'm helping agencies who sell life, right? And then finally somebody really helped me understand the purpose behind it, helped me build out a mathematical model to say, like, if you got hit by a truck tomorrow, like, this is the situation your family's in. And suddenly, just the time, the medical exam, all of that, and then being on the other side of it, I can't imagine that I left that possibility out there for so long. So it's funny being on the other side of it once you understand what that can feel like. But I love the intentionality of, let me educate Brett, let me educate Andy, John, whoever, on what this means. And then they'll go to you. And that long-term game, like, if you need to press somebody on it today, say, oh, your pipeline's too small. You shouldn't have to, like, slam dunk somebody, right? And if it takes years to develop that relationship and you've got some other service with them, but then eventually they set up, then the game just becomes, I'm going to go help as many people today. And so I feel like from a culture standpoint, it's a very different tone in an agency that's pushing sell, revenue, sell versus like help, serve, educate. It just creates a completely different energy pattern with people. And then, you talk a little bit about turning a life insurance pipeline into like a referral engine. So
Right.
unless I'm misinterpreting that, I'd be really curious kind of how you see those two things go hand in hand with one another.
Well, early on in my insurance career, uh, my retention ratio. Some people say attrition for what you lose, and some people say retention for what you keep. Right. I always said retention because I wanted to be positive about the process. Right. My retention was not great. I was not retaining the amount of customers that I wanted to retain, and it's kind of it kind of leads back to what you were just saying. If you come on quickly, you're quick to leave as well, right? If I don't spend as much time with you on a sale, you'll be very quick to leave me once that price changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my goal was to go back to my marketing methods, the 15 of them that I had, and look at them and analyze why were people leaving me so quickly. And a lot of those marketing methods were tied to transactional relationships. And I said, well, I don't want as much of a transactional relationship. How can I get leads? How can I generate my own leads without having to call up a lead center and complain? Because that's where I was spending most of my time if I bought leads, rather than working on the leads, right? I don't want to spend as much time complaining about the leads with the guy who sold them to me as I did just working on the leads. So I said, I'm going to create my own lead source. And so I started to sell more life insurance. And then I realized something, and it was a light bulb moment. I realized, wow, this is my target market. This is I was Farmers branded. You knew that back in the day. And farmers wanted what they called the confident planner, and the confident planner had good credit, long-standing credit. The ability to buy life insurance was part of that whole process. And so I reverse engineered it, and I said, I'm going to lead with life insurance. And I just sold them the hardest thing there is to sell in our industry. Home and auto is going to be a piece of cake once I get to that question, right? So I would sell the life insurance. I'd give them a little time to simmer, and after 2 or 3 weeks of being on board with us for life insurance, we call them and we say, "Hey, can we take a look at your home and auto?" And they said, "We didn't know you did home and auto." And yeah, we do home and auto. Sure, you can take a look at my home and auto. It's the easiest uh, process to get a valid home and auto lead, and they fit right into our target market because of who they were. They were usually homeowners. That's one reason. A lot of reasons people buy life insurance. They want to protect their home, and they want to make sure the mortgage gets paid off, et cetera, et cetera. So it just was kind of a natural fit. I was lucky enough to meet a guy. I'm not going to take credit for that one. I was lucky enough to meet a guy named Joe Wimpy. There's probably a lot of agents on this call that know Joe Wimpy, and if you ever see Joe Wimpy, tell him Brett Vance says thank you, because he led with financial services in the same manner. He says you just have to find your own lead sources, Brett, and develop them yourself. Now,
Wow.
getting those life insurance leads, that's a whole nother process all in itself. But that is that life leading with life really created a lot of increased retention for me in my agency, because one policy stays 12 to 18 months. Two types of policies, that'd be like auto policy, auto and home. Two types of policies, they stay like 2 to 4 years. Three
Mm-hmm.
types, three different types of policies say somewhere between 4 and 7 years. Four types of policies can stay 7+ years in your agency. It's harder to move more things, Andy. And it's a big long answer to the why behind what we're talking about. But I put a lot of thought process. I did a lot of of business planning. Every November I would do business planning. Every month in the following year I would review the business plan. And it would change all year long, but at least we had some sense of direction of where we were going. And that was one of my business planning tools for the following year. And it's amazing because we sold 100 life policies the next year, um, which generated, and in the PNC agency, I know there's probably life agents on this call, and they're like, I sell 100 life policies in 2 months. And I get it. But for a PNC agency, that was a large number. And we grew that to 234. And guys, I'm not talking Brett Vance grew that to 234. My team grew that to 234
Mm-hmm.
per year. And it's all through the process of thinking, I'm going to get a home and auto lead out of this eventually, right? So again, reverse engineering it to get what you want instead of complain to the guy who isn't giving you what you want. So we kind of
Mm-hmm.
reversed that. And we didn't buy leads for, I would say, would say if we did this in my agency for 21 years, we probably bought leads 3 of 21 years.
Wow.
I know, right? I just I wanted to spend my time working on lead sources that I could control. And I think uh, maybe we could have another call sometime this year, and I could talk about, we could just do 15 marketing methods, and I could help agents, and I'd be happy to do it. I had many mentors that helped me, but we could talk specifically on calls. Or I could come to one of your events if you wanted to, and I could explain those things and explain how you can just generate your own stuff. Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. And I mean, I appreciate the longer answer because there's a lot of gold I picked up in there. And, it's really interesting going back to what you said about the way in which you market will lead to the quality of the sale and the retention of the customer. So it's like gimmicky transactional marketing might get you a quick sale, but it's going to result in a quick exit as soon as, they find a better price or something like that. So also starting with the hardest to sell product first and then working your way backwards, like those two things. And it reminds me of a phrase I learned from this young kid that was at one point the number one sales guy for Cutco knives in the whole country. Which is a pretty big title because they have very aggressive salespeople. So like if you can climb to the number one guy, you're probably pretty good at selling. And he's like, one thing I live by is that if something's easy on the front end, it's going to be hard on the back end. And if it's hard on the front end, it'll usually be easy on the back end. It's kind of that whole thing of like
Right.
hard decisions, easy life, easy decisions, hard life, and I think it's interesting to see the way that you have baked that into like sales in general. And then controlling your own marketing, building on a valuable relationship, building trust with them through something that's absolutely vital to their family, but starting with something that's a little bit more difficult to get. There's just so many lessons, in and throughout that conversation. So that's fantastic. And kind of bridging over to another topic, which we were texting back and forth a bit about, is Medicare, and
Yep.
filling the gap with Medicare. And you mentioned having like Medicare conversations, and I'm curious. This seems to be an area that maybe, I'm not wanting to put words in your mouth, but you feel like maybe agents are missing the opportunity here with Medicare. And I'd love to
100%.
understand that a little bit more if you don't mind unpacking that as well.
Sure. This one might take a minute because Medicare is complex and Medicare is ever changing. It's so ever changing. You have to get AHIP certified every single year on the changing plans that come out. The one thing we always talk about in Medicare is there's one thing guaranteed about Medicare, and that is claims are coming. I mean, think about who we're insuring from a health standpoint. We're insuring everyone 65 and older, right? When
Hmm.
it comes to, and look, I'm not here. I'm not on this call, this podcast with you to judge. I'm here to give you facts, and the facts are that claims are coming, right? And so the other thing about Medicare that I realized, and I didn't realize it till about 10 years in, um, I was having trouble with making the move with all the way the insurance industry was making the move with all the marketing methods I had. And I said, I need another one. I need another one. I need another one. I said, who's my confident planner? Who is the person that's going to most likely buy from me? And identified them somewhere between 50 years old and 80 years old. And I was like, oh, okay. So how do I get into these leads? So
Hmm.
I currently have children, grown children, and they both have Medicare agencies. We'll share their information in a minute. And this is who I do this with. But back before they did Medicare, I did this process with an outside Medicare agent. Now, there's one key to why I was able to do it with an outside Medicare agent, and I'll tell you the process. I did it with an outside Medicare agent. It was successful because he did not do property and casualty, and I did not do Medicare, and we weren't going to pilfer each other's books. In other words, we could trust each other that he's not going to steal my home and auto, and I'm not going to steal his Medicare. And I didn't want to get Medicare certified every year. I didn't want to go through the process because that was a timely process, and I was focused on obviously 14 other things. And that 15th one that I wanted to implement was tap in and reverse engineer and get those home and auto leads from that from that Medicare agent. And so I would visit that Medicare agent once a week, and I would go in and I would say, hey, when my book ages, I will hand them over to you. And he said, I'll gladly pay you $100. Legally, I can pay you $100 every time you send me somebody who signs up. So I'd send him Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and he'd send me $200 because he signed them up for Medicare. I used that extra $200. And some months he'd send me 600, and some months he'd send me $1,000. I'd use that money for more marketing, and I'd go and spend it on my marketing programs. And so it was another source of funds that I could market. However, he would always, after selling the Medicare, explain to his customers he works with an agent that does PNC, and he would send me the PNC leads, and I would close them at a high rate because they were in my confident planner uh, market. And so now I do that with my children, and we absolutely are in synergy when it comes to that type of process. Um, I don't make them pay me if I give them a Medicare lead because they're my children, but they would gladly pay any agent on this call if they send them a Medicare lead. Or if there is any Medicare agents on this call, I would encourage you to get with an agent and develop that synergy, because you guys have leads for each other. You just need to trust each other and just need to feed off each other's growth when it comes to that. But I think you have my daughter's link up there. I think it's Abigail's link, and she's in Texas, but she works in 50 states, and she'd be happy to set you up on a referral program. Oh, I'm sorry, up there.
No, you're good. No, I
Yeah.
was trying to find it too. So it's up here. If you scan
Yeah.
this link, that'll take you directly to her contact card.
Yeah. And I mean, my kids are cutting agents, $200 a month to, I think the biggest check they've ever written is like $2,000 a month from people who are looking into their book, and they want their people taken care of. Some people don't even do it for the split, or for the money, I should say. uh, Medicare is a very dangerous proposition for a lot of older people because they will call centers, and they will call places that are just trying to churn their business and trying to make a dime off of them, and they lose prescriptions and they lose doctors, and it's a tough proposition for people who are turning 65, or who are already 65, and they're getting just hammered with phone calls. And so uh, and I'm sure there's a lot of good Medicare people on the call that agree with me when it comes to that. People need a good, reliable person that they can refer to every year and say, "Hey, how is my plan changing?" And but back to your original question. Again, we unpacked a lot there, but back to your original question, which is how do we leverage that? Another lead source, taking care of your customers, trust, 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 and it's where it's most needed. And it the insurance industry itself is moving to more of a confident plan. I keep saying confident planner because that's how we labeled it, but you know what I everyone on the call probably knows what I mean. It's good credit, established people, very little claims, less likely to file a claim. A lot of those people live in that Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement area. And if those are coming in as home and auto leads, and again, you've probably sold them one of the harder things to sell them. And now, if you say home and auto, they're like, "Oh, that sounds great. We already
Easy.
trust you. Easy peasy. Let's go." Um, and they'll trust what you say. Uh, and what you say is education about the auto and home, but they're going to trust it more, rather than to just feel like you're trying to sell them something. So if I
I'm
had to
seeing a
do it all
trend
over
here.
again, yeah, if I had to do it all over again, year one, um, I would have started that day one. Uh, I don't think that's going to change. I think that's going to be a concept in insurance. The tighter these underwriters get with home and auto, and it's getting tight, meaning they're not accepting as much as they used to accept, and there's becoming a big disparity between it, uh, uh, you know, high level carriers and sub level carriers when it comes to home and auto. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
again, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to say, hey, that's just happening in our industry. It's what it is, and what they want to capture are these confident planners. Yeah, that's your older generation. So
I love it too because it makes total sense when you back away from it and say, okay, if I had to make a choice between my life gets taken or my car gets blown up by a meteor, take my car. like the value that people place on their health,
Take my
their
card.
life, their longevity, the protection over their family, which is on this Medicare side, this life side, is like a more significant coverage. It's more meaningful. I get more joy. I actually like paying my monthly health insurance plan and life insurance plan because I'm like, man, if we ever end up in the hospital with the kiddo, he's covered on stuff. Man, if something happens to me,
Yeah,
they're covered. It's a check that I like to write. Whereas like auto and home, it's like, yeah, it's like I know I need it. It's good to have protection, but it doesn't have that same meaning. So I just love this whole idea because it kind of takes this generic kind of begrudging, like, I guess, and if you're captive, right, and maybe you're incentivized to sell life, and if you can't, then you don't make maximum bonus or something, right? A lot of captive agents are actually like required to hit a quota. But if that's the attitude,
sure.
is like, I guess I'll sell some versus why don't we start there as a completely different way to market? And yeah, maybe you're still doing frontline auto and home, outreach efforts, giveaways, paid leads, live transfers, direct mail, whatever. But like really starting to like wrap your arms around what he's saying, it should I would think for me, like it's already shifting my mindset on this and saying, wow, like if you make that sector of the business a way to lead your marketing, you develop relationships from a very different origin story. So I absolutely love this. And I know we're jumping around a lot, but you're just a wealth of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge in your brain and a lot of experience. I'm also curious on the commercial side. You had
Yep.
mentioned to me earlier about like hard to place markets and things like that. And I think that's a really interesting area. So, you starting a brokerage helping agents fill in their needs. And I'm really curious, like what holes you see on the commercial side and some of those hard to place markets.
Yeah, there's so many different contracts out there. When you say these brands, Farmers, Allstate, State Farm, all these things, independents sometimes even can have some contracts. What we're trying to do is we're trying to work within the confines of all these agents' contracts. We're trying to fill the holes that they're not able to fill, meaning provide insurance quotes for those markets that their current situation doesn't provide. And then we're going to provide them some technology. And then, Andy, that's maybe something that we have not talked about yet because that technology is still in development. And I may be a little bit premature in telling you this on this call. So this might be the first that I've mentioned it in a public forum, but I'm okay with it because it's coming along quite nicely. But to back up to the actual markets, I can only just give you some examples in these markets that we're gaining access to are growing daily. But some of the types of companies that we've placed are oil and gas risks. Those are very hard to place for a lot of agents, especially captive agents who can right outside. Um, we insured a diver who cleans the bottom of boats down in the coastal areas. That's very hard risk. Some auto dealers, wrought iron custom fence builders. A lot of agents on the call will get excited when I say this one. Churches. We're really good at
Hmm.
churches. We can even do vape and smoke shops, warehouses, roofing, temporary staffing, work comp for temporary staffing. Very hard to place work comp risk. We can do a lot of that. Beef
Hmm.
jerky company. And this is the big one, especially for farmers agents that are on the call. We've found a market for nationwide for dwelling policies. Those are policies rented to others, single family homes, duplexes, and fourplexes. A lot of people don't consider those commercial risks. We always have considered them commercial risk because a lot of times they're in LLCs or corporations names or trusts. A lot of companies have trouble placing those type of policies in trusts and other names. And we can do master policies for those dwellings. We can do, and I'm naming the hard to place holes that agents have. So we can do all with a like renewal date on a master policy. We can do protection class nines and tens when it comes to fire protection classes. We can do fire lines in some cases if they're in Colorado or Montana or Idaho if they're having some fire line issues with their current carriers. And they're all A+ rated company. I think those policies are backed by Lloyd's and Chubb. So what it is, Andy, is we're trying to do the work that these agents absolutely do not have the time for. We're trying to be an arm of their company to go out
Mm.
and source the location where they can place it, and we give them the lion's share of the commission. And then the last one would be life insurance. We do the same thing with life insurance. We have 60 carriers. We've had agents call us about their declines with their carriers, and we're actually able to place those into term policies, index universal life policies, traditional whole policies, graded death benefit policies. And so we're having a lot of success with those agents uh, who are working with us. And I will say this, and I know we're going to share this at the end of the call probably, but we're taking select agents right now. We are in our trial mode or our pilot modes on some of these risks. And if you were to ask why, we would say, well, we want to make sure that we get it right, that we don't dirty the pool, that we don't submit uh, a lot of dirty business. When I say dirty business, a lot of claims, a lot of those things. And so we're working with a lot of select agents. Where we're currently looking for agents is still in Texas, Arizona, California, Colorado, Indiana, Illinois, Georgia, Oklahoma, Nevada, Idaho, Montana. Those are really the
Mm.
states that we're right now seeking agents. And if you are an agent in another state and you're looking to fill some of these holes that you have, and those are not all inclusive of the risks that I've named. We can write many other risks, admitted and surplus lines carriers. But if you are an agent in one of those other states, that doesn't mean we would tell you no. We might open up a pilot in that state, but we're doing things differently, Andy, than most brokers. And here it is. This is the big play. If we say yes, we can help you place it. We usually turn it around same day or in 2 days. Most brokerages are weeks unquote turnaround when it comes to commercial lines. So that's our big play is turnaround time
Mm.
and filling those needs. So I feel
And
awful. I should be giving you short answers to short questions. I'm giving you very long answers to very short questions.
you and I are wired the same way. No, I'm with it. I'm with it 100%. And I guess like I've got this thing screaming in the back of my mind though that says, why hard to reach or hard to place markets, right? Why not just stick to the easy stuff? What's the opportunity? And if you're not focused on that, what do they not know?
You
What
know,
boat are they missing?
um, yeah. So we didn't want to be an aggregator, right? We didn't want to just churn business. We wanted to make sure that we were helpful to agents and created relationships with agents and made their jobs easier. We want to make the hard easy, and we want agents to trust us that we can do that. And so there would be no fulfillment, I don't think, if we were just aggregating business and churning what's easy to do. Everybody's doing that. We want to
Amen.
be a function of those agencies where they can grow their commercial books and eventually put them up next to their property and casualty books and they be similar in book size. When I sold my agency back in shoot, it's almost been 4 years now. That was my goal is and I wouldn't have been able to monetize my agency for as much as I monetized it for if I had not had a large commercial book next to it. And I think that's what pulled me out of semi-retirement, Andy, is my buddy John Montgomery. He is my co-founder over at Real Time Insurance Group, along with a guy named Reagan Hay, and Reagan Hay is taking care of the IT or the AI development internally. The three of us got together, and I was like, now, and they kept saying, Brett, come on, you got to join us and let's go do this. And the end game was I had to have a purpose, and the purpose is these agents need help. And if the byproduct is we make some money, then we make some money. But I think I'm in this on my last swing for for the self-worth of leaving an impact with these agents. Many agents helped me over the years, and this is my chance because I don't have to do it. This is my chance to give back and give these agents what they need and make these agents agents wealthier and make their families' lives richer. And I think if we do that, then the end result's going to be good for us. And so that's our why right now. And I believe John and Reagan feel the same way. And I hope these agents that do trust in us, that come over and say, "Hey, can you help me place this?" know that there's love and care in that process, and not just, "Hey, we're trying to make a buck." You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
can I can definitely feel that, and we'll get some information up here on the screen in about 10 minutes. But one of the other areas that I got to ask about. So you've worked with and coached over 10,000 agents out there, which is huge. And I'm curious, just from your perspective, what separates the top performers, the top agents, from the ones that just kind of do the same thing year in and year out and just get average results? What are typically a couple of the qualities that you're looking for and that you've noticed is a commonality between those that really excel and take off in their career?
Yeah, I mean, that I've met and that a lot of them I developed relationships with. I, I, I don't know if this is going to be a great answer, but I'm going to say it anyhow because I understand it, and I hope everyone can understand it. Is the most successful ones, the ones that start like I did, and we don't know what we're doing, to to you know, and when do you define success, Andy? You and I could debate that for another 3-hour call, right? When is success defined? But if I were on the outside looking in, labeling them as, "Oh wow, you're successful or becoming successful," their key difference is that they don't have an off button. And what I mean by that is they truly understand that the first 2 to 4 years is uber key before you can start playing, before you can start um, doing the things you want. I got to be real careful because the landscape we live in 2026 is so work life balanced, and there's so many conversations about that, and there's so many things that I just don't want to offend people. But those agents who I know are going to be successful, even if we're 6, 12 months in, are those ones that I can see while I'm coaching them that they don't have an off button, that they understand that they're going hard for 2 to 4 years, and if they put that time in, the next 15 years will be the best 15 years of their lives. And I guess
Hmm.
the easy way to say it, and you're going to say that's a coined phrase, Brett, but you know, there everything that's worth anything requires sacrifice. And I think when agents really tap into that emotional process, then they'll fully understand that they could make great things with that. Um, and then secondly, the ones that don't complain, the ones that control what they can control, they don't blame others. They look within and really put the work in, and
Hmm.
and don't say, "Well, it's Andy's fault or it's Brett's fault that I'm failing." Um, you're like, "Brett, what you're acting kind of like a life coach here. You're not acting like an insurance coach." Well, my answer would be, "Well, isn't that part of it, right? It's we got to get our mind straight before we get our business straight." And um, a lot of people say emotion have no place in business. I used to say that emotion has no place in business. I think it does if it's the right emotions. I think negative emotions have no place in business, but positive ones like passion and care and love and those kind of things, I think those do have places in our businesses. I don't think anything with negativity as far as emotions go have a place in our business. And I think those agents who will take care of their physical health, their mental health, and others, those are the ones that are really going to succeed. Andy, they're all smart. They're all intelligent. They all know what needs to be done. They all get the process. They all understand. Um, I think the differences are the choices that we make on a daily basis. We either choose to be happy, we either choose to be on a success path, or we don't. And if I can get you there, um, your income's going to double.
Hmm.
It's going to be so much more fruitful for you. It's probably not the answer you wanted or the answer a lot of people on this call wanted. There's a little bit of tough love mixed in there somewhere, but um, it was done for me. And as your friend, I'm not going to have you call me and rekindle our relationship, and you say, hey, come on my podcast and lie to me. Andy, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's part of my coaching style, and not everybody loves it, and sometimes I don't love it because it hurts me to say you're not putting in the work. One rule I had, and I'll give you one example of sacrifice, right? One rule I had when I first started was I would not go on a vacation. I would not buy a car. I would not do anything outside of necessities like food and shelter for myself, buy a newer, bigger house. Any of those things, my rule was if I did it, I had to put the equal amount of money into my retirement plan.
Hmm.
Right. And that's a tough ask. I remember we went to Disney, I think second year of my agency, and back then it was only a couple $1,000s. I think I hear nowadays it's more like $10,000 if you want to really go to Disney and do it right. But I put 2,000 in my retirement plan. I 2,000, and we went to Disney as a family. And that was tough for me to do. But I didn't think I needed 2,000 to go to Disney. I think I needed 4,000 to go to Disney. And those are the discipline type things um,
Hmm.
that I think my mentors taught me that I'm looking back on it 25 plus years. I'm like, thank God that guy was tough with me. Thank God
Mhm.
that lady told me the truth. Just remember, Andy, good coaches don't lie to you. Bad coaches will lie to you all day long. You know what I mean? You never get any
Absolutely.
better. You never get any better with somebody telling you how great you are, right?
Yeah, and I too as well. Just not to make this about like sales strategy, but I mean honestly, like when you look at the idea of like somebody asking a question and wanting a certain answer, I think that's a miswiring. I think people should ask a question to get whatever the answer is and not have any preference. And I hear people all the time in sales conversations, even leaders, frame a question in a way that they're begging for a certain type of answer. And I'm like, why don't you just ask the
Right.
question and get quiet and get a real answer? But no, I greatly appreciate that. And one of the final questions I have, and then just with the clock, I want to make sure we should have you back on. We'll do that if you're open to it, because we have more to cover on financials and marketing strategy. But one thing I wanted to
Sure.
ask you before we get into where people can reach out to you, get involved with you and your kiddos, so on and so forth. What is the
Yeah.
one overcomplication or time suck or area where you see agents just, I don't know, they end up like they're supposed to be running down this road and they spend way too much time over here. They
Mhm.
overcomplicate it, or something that you just see so many people like
Got it.
just get stuck on. And you're like, it doesn't have to be
Got it.
that complicated. I'm really curious kind of your perspective on that.
Yeah, self-awareness is a you know what, right? That and I struggle with this even to this day with my current people. I'll go ahead and say it on this call. Sam, Dave, Baden, Wendy, my team over at Real Time, I owe you something, because what I'm about to say is going to show you that I owe you something, and I'm going to get to you and I'm going to give it to you. But with that being said, Andy, I think that in myself included, when I first started, and even today I get away from it, and I shouldn't, is when we try to scale and bring people on, we don't train them. We spend most of our time putting out their fires and fixing problems. And so I
Hmm.
think where we can really get rid of that time suck is if we develop a training program, we stick to that training program, we onboard people, and then onboard them again, and then onboard, because we as human beings need repetition to develop habit, right? I've read tons of books, and it says, well, some people can develop habits in 6 times and some people it takes them 30 times, and it's somewhere in between there. But when you're bringing people on and training them, it takes repetition. And I think a lot of people show people something once and they're like, he's got it, and or she's got it, and it's not fair to that person. And I think if we truly want to scale and want to recreate ourselves, we have to put more time into that, because it feels like it's more time overall, but it's not. It's a little bit more time up front, and it's a lot less time over the long haul. So I'm glad I got on this podcast, because I'm going right back over to Real Time today, and I'm going to put them all on a repetition of what we've already gone over. And look, we're all intelligent people, you and me included. But if you told me about Team Hired and about things that need to happen over there, I'm going to guarantee you that you can't show me once and be like, okay, Brett's got it. Because I'm going to have to maybe mirror you sometimes or whatever it needs. So I guess my message and final word on that would be, you know, ask that person, ask that team member, what do you need on a regular basis? And the byproduct of that will be, I need some more training. They won't say it verbatim like that. They'll say it in different ways, but the message you'll get is, I need more training.
I completely agree with you from a lot of experience myself in that arena. I love that. Man, we would love to have you back on. I think I had taken a lot of notes and things ahead of time, diving into your background. And even just today, we covered a lot, mindset, operations, focus areas, and diversity on marketing, Medicare, commercial, all of these different areas all tie in together though into like one orchestra. And I think we have more to talk about. So I'll reach back out to you. We should connect and find another time if you'd be willing to. Would absolutely love to have you back on. But I do want to share out a slide here on real-time insurance and give you an opportunity just to speak to it. And we've got some contact details and a QR
I'd be more than happy
code.
to join you.
Say that again. Sorry, cut out for a minute.
Yeah, I said I'd be happy to join you again. Just let me know when.
That would be amazing. Excellent. So thank you very much for getting this over just so we can share this out. Can you explain a little bit the maybe core reasons why somebody should reach out, and then how, best way to get a hold of you guys? I'm imagining it's probably through this QR code, the link realtimeinsurancegroup.com, or emailing info@realtimeinsurancegroup.com. But can you just speak through a little bit of who you're seeking to connect with, and really the benefit and advantage to individuals reaching out to you as well and connecting through this?
Yeah, most of our success has been with new agents or agents who've not really done any outside commercial. And we would be happy to even teach you how to fill out an accord form or teach you what coverages are needed. A lot of brokers won't do that. John and I and our underwriters over there and internal wholesalers, we will do that for you. We'll have conversations with you. We'll explain why things are needed on submissions. So if you've never really done a commercial submission out of filling out something on an online form and send it in, and you really need to understand more about insurance, we're the brokerage for you. Now, if you're an experienced insurance agent, retail agent, and you just need some markets, that's also who we're trying to talk to. The best way is to email that info@realtimeinsurancegroup.com and request a virtual call. We'll get on a call with you. We'll explain more about what we have. You can use the QR code as well. That is our 800 line. That's another way. If you need an immediate answer, you can call them and say, even when you're not appointed with us, you can call and say, hey, do you have a market for a diver who cleans the bottom of boats? And we'd be able to tell you right away. And then if you just want more information there, you can go visit our website, which is constantly being developed. But and if you did need and didn't catch the QR code, with Abigail, and you needed any Medicare questions answered, or you wanted to create some synergy through the Medicare process, you could still use that link. They know Abigail over there. Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is on the top of the page. But
Perfect,
appreciate
Brett.
you having us, and look forward to the next one.
Yeah, thank you very much. This has been amazing. I'm really, really grateful for your time. I learned a bunch too, and I've been in this space for a while now, and I really, really am grateful for you diving so deep. Please show Brett some love. Reach out. I know he's got an amazing. What's the name of your Facebook group?
My Insurance Coach.
My Insurance Coach. Good.
We'll go.
Yeah. Link and drop it in.
And you're a member. If they're friends with you, you could probably invite them to that link, or they can go. They can just look up. I think it's the only My Insurance Coach or similar on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, guys, make sure that you reach out and, definitely connect with Brett. You can check out the group. I'm happy to share that with you. If you just reach out to me, I can invite you in. All of the permission I just got from Brett to do so. And thank you, everybody, so much for joining us for another episode. This has been another great hour on Ask the Experts with Mr. Brett Vance. Brett, thank you again so much. And we will see you guys on the next one.
All right. See you, Andy.